It's time for one Kyle Brandt from Good Morning Football, who we need to mention had a Buffalo Bill on his candidate nominee list for angry runs this week. Roll the tape.
And let's go to Alfred Molina in a bathrobe because we're motoring. Buffalo beats New England. Second snap of the game. Devin Singletary. He's going to take somebody for a ride and run somebody over. Watch this. A rare, unprecedented thing we've seen here. Devin Singletary is going to go, I'm going to take a passenger with me, Kyle Duggar, and then we're going to truck a linebacker. Can we loop the bejesus out of this, please? Devin Singletary looks like a freaking rickshaw with a passenger, and Hightower gets knocked over like a punchline from Mahoney and Tackleberry. Look at this thing. I'm encased in the phantom zone in this little box like three outlaws from Krypton. Devin Singletary, second snap of the game. Hashtag tone setter. Motor, you could win this thing, but we got so much competition.
Good stuff. All right, Kyle. I got to give you credit. There's so many references in one description. We got Night Ranger in there, Police Academy. I probably missed three others. Is that just all off the top of your very warped movie-loaded brain? Like, it's unbelievable.
No. Most of it is, I start with, I don't have a teleprompter, or I don't have notes or anything, but I know a jumping point. So since it was Motor Singletary, I was thinking of Motor in Night Ranger, Sister Christian, and that's Alfred Molina in the bathrobe and Boogie Nights singing it. And so I went from there, and then the rest of it just sort of, I don't know, it just comes flying out of my pie hole, in this case in my own basement, as my children are still sleeping.
Right. You're a pop culture font.
And kudos, you called the game. You had 24-20 Buffalo Bills. Before we let you go last week, you said 24-20 Buffalo, and you almost you got one free touchdown for the Bills that you missed. But that was a nice call by you. I got to tell you, I had a lot of anxiety going into that game in New England, a ton of it. And I was surprised that it was a half a step from a beatdown by Buffalo.
I know. It really felt like it was, too. Like, I know that the score is what it is, but every time I keep referring to that game, or even just thinking about that game, it's in my subconscious that Buffalo crushed them. I really feel like they did. And I know that there's Patriots fans who say the dropped interception could have changed everything. Well, I could have, would have, should have. Shut up. I don't know. I feel like they were clearly the better team from start to finish, including on the Devin Singletary run there. And I don't know, guys, like we talk week after week, so we have the advantage of sitting back and looking at this whole map of this season. I just feel like something happened in Tampa, and the team that came out of that halftime locker room is like the best team in football. They changed. Something happened. That first half was deplorable in Tampa, and you're like, oh, well, the season's over. Everything's going down the drain. They came out, and they lost in overtime, but they were clearly way better in the second half. Crushed Carolina, in my opinion, crushed New England. Something happened at halftime, and maybe it's a rock bottom thing, or maybe they finally got mad enough, but they haven't been the same since, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, and this is the first time, Kyle, they've stacked wins in 2 months.
Yeah,
I mean, now, and in the last 2 weeks, this offense has beaten the number 2 defense in the league and the number 3 defense in the league, and they hung 30 burgers on both of them. So are we seeing this team kind of reclaiming its status as an offensive juggernaut at just the right time?
I just think we're seeing Allen go ballistic. If it was this last week, I mean, the biggest factor in all of this was the Beasley and Davis thing out. Like, I can't believe they were that efficient without those two guys. Those guys are key guys. I mean, they really are. So they're gone. They miss the biggest game of the year, and Josh doesn't give a crap. It just went up and down the field. I feel like Diggs could have been out, and he still would have done it. Like, he's just in this wild beast mode where I don't know if he's the best player in the league right now. Like, I just take this last, maybe let's call it 2.5 games. Rodgers is great and everything. And I don't think Josh Allen's going to win MVP, but my God, like he has found this zone and this zen where I think he got mad or something, or maybe it's that whole storyline about them getting embarrassed, because say what you want again about that New England game. The first one, I mean, the first half of Tampa was embarrassing too. And then the whole game, way that game ended with the officiating, everyone was just mad. And I remember I called in that next week, and everyone was mad. And the fans were mad at the referees and mad at the league and mad at the world and mad at everyone. And then since then, they haven't lost. And it's just all coming up, Josh. I got to tell you, I have a weird first-person story. I hope you wouldn't mind me sharing this.
Oh, go ahead.
So a few weeks ago, before everything got really, really bad with COVID and more, we were seeing more in the airports and stuff. A couple of weeks ago, I had a flight. My wife and I had to go on a trip, like a quick weekend trip, and we're at JFK Airport outside here in New York, and we're waiting for our flight. And somebody comes up and says, "Excuse me, are you Kyle Brandt?" I said, "Yeah, how you doing?" And he said, "Oh, I watch the show all the time. Thank you so much." And he said, "My name is Joel Allen. I'm Josh Allen's father." And I said, "Oh, that's so cool. Nice to meet you, sir." And we talked on and on about the season. And, he said, "Thank you for the support." And I said, "How are the pistachios? I understand that Josh is now, you guys are getting away from row crops. How are the pistachios coming?" And he told me all about the crops and all about, we talked about the Tampa game because that had just happened. And, he was just really cool, nice man with a hell of a farmer's handshake. And I just thought it was unbelievably cool. I hope he doesn't mind me telling, but he was a great, great guy. And he was going to the game, of course, coming all the way from Fireball, stop in New York, and then get there. It's just great encounter. And man, his son has just been unconscious.
Yeah, and his son was really he was the best player on the field on this last Sunday against the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing that's starting to come on the horizon, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too far, but it looks like the best playoff matchup coming down the road, the most statistically likely, is Bills-Patriots again. It'll be in Buffalo this time. I don't know how I feel about it.
You don't know if your angst can handle it?
I don't. Maybe okay, it'd be fun, great. But the way this last game went was awesome, and I think, wow, we could do that again and again and again and again. But then I go back and I rewatched the game, and there was like miraculous play after miraculous play after miraculous play. Well, how many miracles is it going to take to beat these guys again? But nevertheless, it could happen again. Now the Miami Dolphins, we've got 3 teams in the AFC East that are in the playoffs. So it's going to be one of the 2 of them anyway. How do you feel about the fact that all of a sudden, it went from the AFC North with Baltimore, with Cleveland, with Cincinnati, with Pittsburgh, all these teams in the playoffs. Now it's the AFC East. I'm shocked. I got to tell you.
Well, how do I feel? I'm worried about you, Steve. I can hear it in your voice. We got to take care of our guy now. We got the Patriots coming again. Let's not pretend we don't have the Hall of Fame finals coming out on Thursday, Steve. We know that's coming, and we're all rooting for you. And I know you're very, very modest about that, but you have a lot going on for Steve Tasker. And to answer your question,
nice. Now I'm starting to get verklempt here.
I know.
I got some chest tightness.
And we got New Year's coming up, and I don't want you drinking too much on New Year's Eve, Steve. We want to just play it nice and safe, no verklemptness, no chest tightness. And I actually, you know what, Steve? I don't think that the Patriots should add too much to that. And I'll tell you why. That game in Buffalo was absurd. It was farcical atmosphere, very, very strange circumstances. And the Patriots had this crazy game plan, and the Bills didn't make enough plays. You go to New England, and, you got a little different conditions, a little different state of mind. I think they smacked them. And I'll tell you something else. Rookie quarterbacks always show themselves eventually. Always. Nobody goes as a rookie and shows up and goes straight to the Super Bowl. And, what do you know? They're a prodigy. You can give me Ben Roethlisberger as a rookie, Russell Wilson. All of them have eventually petered out, even with good teams. And we're seeing that right in front of us with this Mac Jones, because we saw it a couple weekends ago. The Indianapolis game for New England was his welcome to the NFL moment, in which he looked like a rookie, had bad turnovers, and this was supposed to be some supposed bounce back game against Buffalo. It wasn't. It was not. He has not been good the last 3 weeks at all, and it's right on schedule. You're playing your best football in December. You're telling me this. Why should you be worried? You have Josh Allen, who looks like the best player in the league, and you have Mac Jones, who is turning into a pumpkin overnight. Don't be worried. You should want the Patriots. They have a rookie quarterback. The hell with them.
Yeah, and one more on Bills Patriots here, Kyle, because I can't wrap my head around the lack of a sense of reality on the part of Patriots fans. I think for the better part of 20 years, they were spoiled, and they now assume that last year was an anomaly. It was COVID, we had Cam, and blah, 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 but it's all back on track now. Mac Jones' numbers are better than, Brady's were in his first year as a starter. You're hearing all this garbage. And then even after this game, they're still saying they would take Mac Jones over Josh Allen. They were saying it going into the game. They're saying it coming out of the game. It's just, I just don't know if they have a firm grip on what reality is because they've been so spoiled for the better part of the last 2 decades. And I know I'm inserting some personal feelings into this, Kyle, but quite frankly, I don't care right now. I just think it's so irrational and it's so tiresome. I can't take it anymore.
They're going to be irrational,
even after they get thumped, they still can't accept the truth.
Brownie, is anybody really saying that they would rather have Mac Jones than Josh Allen? Has that been said?
They said it last week on the air on radio stations up there.
What?
Yeah.
All right. Well, then they are delusional. And listen, they're one percenters. So all of a sudden, maybe they lost 90% of their net worth. What is it that the guys from Trading Places, Randolph and Mortimer, who are out at the street at the end? Like it's, they went 20 years of every single year they're in the penthouse. And then last year they lost almost all of it. Now they think, no, we're still, listen, they did win a ton of games in the middle of the season consecutively and looked really impressive. But listen, and I do think that Belichick matters. And I do think that Mac Jones is really promising. But this idea that they're going to win the Super Bowl this year or the title this year, it's hubris or idiocy. And honestly, what's the screen name of someone who said, yeah, give me Mac Jones over Josh Allen? Because they're an imbecile. Imbecile. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you're right. We've got.
I want screen names.
Right, exactly.
I think it was a couple of radio guys on the radio up there.
We come down to the stretch here. Last 2 games of an 18-game season, and I said this yesterday. Yeah. We had this conversation. Every team, and the Patriots may be this as well. Certainly, the Bills are. The Buccaneers were last year. You look down every team. The Chiefs, the Packers, every single team this season. The season has gotten to a point where it's a little long. And every team has got stretches of a couple of weeks or a couple of games where that like wow, that is not the team. Every single team has looked like that at some stretch. Is that going to be the new norm? Is that going to be what do you think it says about whatever those teams are? Is it strictly you don't know? You just have to wait until they play that week to find out how they're playing? It's a different atmosphere, I think, all over the league, even in the big picture.
I think so too. And I think that's why the wild card round is going to be insane because, the other thing that's interesting, Steve, right now, usually this time of year, some team comes running like a team that was miserable at the beginning of the season. Maybe it's Miami, but Miami's technically already in. If you look at the AFC standings of the teams that are not in the playoff picture, meaning they're not in the first 7, they're on the outside looking in. There's really nobody because it's Cleveland, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, the Raiders, the Browns, the Chargers. None of those teams are the team of like, oh my God, don't let them in. Don't let them in. Or they'll start knocking people off. I'm not afraid of any of those teams. The teams that you're afraid of, are Cincinnati for sure. And Cincinnati, I've talked about this for a couple of weeks. I don't think they're a great team. I don't think they're a threat to make some run to the title game. They're a team that if they were a boxer, they have knockout power. Not a great boxer, not down with the sweet science yet, still coming into their own. But they can rip off a 70-yard touchdown so fast your head will spin. And they're a team that if you play them in the wild card round and you're Buffalo or you're Tennessee or anybody like that, depending on how the seedings fall out, I don't want to play Cincinnati. Young, doesn't know, too naive to know what they've been there before, and major home run knockout power. The other teams I'm not so afraid of. That is a draw I don't want if I'm one of the higher seeds in the AFC, just because if they show up that day, they might score 42 points.
Yeah, and as much, Kyle, as Indianapolis depends on Jonathan Taylor, Carson Wentz going on the COVID reserve list today. God. I mean, it was well publicized that he's unvaccinated. So after you started seeing names go on the COVID reserve list for the Colts, I think we only kind of thought it would be a matter of time before he was going to wind up on that list too. But your timing could not be worse here. And I mean, yes, he hasn't really carried that team. And Sam Ehlinger, okay, nice backup, hand the ball off, manage the game, whatever, give it to Jonathan Taylor 40 times. But I don't know. Do you see this disrupting anything for them?
Yeah, hugely so, because it's not only their starting quarterback. Last week was kind of the Carson Wentz moments. He had some big plays and the team's starting to rally around him. And there's some magic building with that team. And now this. And this is why it's impossible to keep COVID, vaccinations, whatnot, out of sports radio, out of sports columns, out of sports Twitter. And the last thing I ever want to do is soapbox this thing and talk politics. But This is why it's a huge liability to have unvaccinated players. Bills fans know you just went through it. Look at what happened to the Chargers last week. Mike Williams, the receiver, Joey Bosa, the DN, not out there, and they lose to the Texans. The Bills good enough to overcome it. I don't care what your political beliefs are, what you choose to vaccinate or not. It sucks to get the dinged if you're not vaccinated and sit out 10 days. Carson Wentz just out. They could easily lose this game because of that. They could easily have their whole season fall apart because of that. So, my God, I feel frustrated for the fans and for the coaches that something that is in a way philosophically preventable isn't. And that's why it's just tough. It's just tough. I get emotional talking about it because I like seeing games decided on the field. And yes, losing your quarterback in week 16, 17, whatever the hell it is, I don't care how good Taylor is. That's a huge blow for them. They're handing it to some rookie. How'd that work for the Saints last night? It's just, It's not happening.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because every time I see something like this happen, I go straight to the team's schedule. I go, well, who do they have to play? Mm-hmm. And in this case, they got the Raiders up here next. And the Raiders are dangerous. Derek Carr can play. He can throw. The Raiders can, they will snag some wins from you. And that's one of the things you got. And then they play the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I got to think you could just hand it off to Jonathan Taylor and beat those guys. But really, the Colts need both those games. They got to win both those games to make sure they get in the playoffs. They're sitting here right now at 9-6. I don't know if 10-7 gets in.
I know.
Because then you're going to look at tiebreakers.
I saw this too. And how much validity are we giving the Phillip Rivers thing? Because I saw something, and I don't know if it was a report or if it was a joke. Are they really asking him? Is this a real report?
What happened, Kyle, was Frank Reich was asked, have you contacted Phillip Rivers at any point in time since we last asked you, which I guess was back in midseason? And this was the day before this news came out, and he said, no, we haven't contacted him. We're happy with the guys that we have. And now people are openly speculating because of what happened with Wentz now going on COVID reserve. Oh, maybe he changed his mind and it could happen now. Right. So Riversgate is up and running.
I'm just wondering if let's play that out. You're Phillip Rivers. We know your family situation. You're not living. It's not like you're living there in Indianapolis. You get the call, Phil, we could use you. Are you interested in that at all? You're going to rent me for a week and a half, and you're getting me a couple game checks, I guess. Like I can't see it. I just, it was the same thing last week. Not even last week, a few days ago with Breeze and the Saints, and it's like, no, I just don't think that guys of that stature. This is not, with all due respect, Blake Bortles signing to come with the Saints to be a backup. These are marquee, beloved, legendary guys in the NFL. I don't think Phillip Rivers is coming back. Would you think there's any chance, Steve, as the next player? You think there's any chance he'd be like, sure, I'll come save you?
None of the great players will do that. Here's the thing. They leave the game making $15, $20 million, and they've made that for half a dozen years at least, right? I mean, they've made a ton of cash, and they're sitting on it. Why? And that's why none of the great players like Peyton Manning, like Drew Brees, like all these guys, none of those guys, Phillip Rivers, they do what they want to do. None of them wants the pressure-packed thing of coming back and trying to be a head coach. Mm-hmm. They don't want it because you got to start from the bottom. You don't just come in and you're not a head coach. Rather, you got to go back like Mike Vrabel, a linebacker coach at Ohio State.
Yeah.
You got then you're a quality control coach for an NFL team. You move up. None of these guys want to come back and start from scratch and build another career. Yeah. They got too much money to do it. They've had too much. They want to do what they want to do. Phillip Rivers wants to head coach at a high school.
What about Brett Favre, though? He did.
He did what?
Came back.
He never left. He was out for He was out for 5 minutes and he came back. Same thing with Gronk. Gronk laid out for 12 months and he said, "Man, now I feel good. Yeah, I'll come back and play with Brady in Tampa. Yeah, I'm in." None of these guys want to do that. It's not enough money, and they if they want to do what they want for a while.
I think if Rivers doesn't do it, I think then you got to try Andrew Luck again, and then you got to try Jeff George and just see if he'll show up. You got to try.
Jeff George. Right? Wow.
Yeah.
Mullet man.
Listen,
Jeff George.
You would be. I think all of us would be shocked at the names that are seriously bantered in coaches' offices because some of these guys have histories with these guys, like Kurt Warner.
Sure. Yeah.
Carson Palmer. You go down the list. There's some guys who are very aged veterans that you like. Give me 3 days, and I can drop back 25 times.
Oh wow!
You know, they can do it.
Man. I'm surprised you didn't bring up Steve DeBerg. I was disappointed that name.
Eli, Peyton. You go down the list. You go down the list. I'm telling you.
All right, Kyle. We went down the rabbit hole with Steve there. Sorry about that.
That's
it
okay.
happens a lot.
I think they should call Dave Craig too. He's always
Dave
up and
Craig.
running. You know
Sure.
that.
Oh jeez. Okay, so Bills Falcons. Not a lot of sizzle here, but let us know what you think.
You know, I guess I'm tempted to say, trap game. The hell with all that. No, Atlanta has been kind of just sitting there for a long time, kind of listless. They have a couple of good players in Pitts, and Cordell Patterson's been one of the great stories, and they have a veteran quarterback. I guess dangerous game. I'm just not going to go there. I think this team found something at this Bills team. I mean it. I really do. And I think that they have been through the period you always talk about, Brownie, where they went about 2 months with win-loss. I think they've got some sort of psychological clarity. It feels like a different team when you watch them than that team we watched in November. So listen, hopefully you get the run game going and Allen doesn't have to throw 52 passes, but not terribly concerned about this. I'm just looking around the league and who they might play. Show up, execute. I think they're locked in.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So
All
win. Handle a win by a comfortable margin.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I'm going to say 33-20. Pretty comfortable, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll see. When it's always a consideration what the weather conditions are going to be up here and all of that stuff. But I think you're right. I mean, I think the Bills outstretch these guys, even if they don't play their best. I think it's a shock to come up here when you live in Atlanta, come up to Buffalo and step off that plane. It's a slap in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My old co-host Nate Burleson always refers to this time of year as car shipping time. And I was like, what the hell's car shipping? He said, and he explains that some of these players who are so successful and so affluent, they ship their cars from if they live in Buffalo or Atlanta or whatever, and they put them on a freighter or a car carrier, whatever, and they send them back to Florida or Arizona, wherever they live in the off season. And he says that sometimes at the end of the year, you can watch teams and tell the guys who are shipping their cars already. And that's just their way of saying they mailed it in and, their Bentley is on the back of a flatbread somewhere. Right. So we'll see if Atlanta might be in car shipping mode. We'll see what they're made of, but hopefully they get there by halftime.
All right, Kyle, thanks as always for the time. Forecast for Sunday here in Buffalo, high of 38, 50% chance of snow.
Happy New Year.
Oh, all right. Mr. Tasker, breathe easy. Be calm, relax, a little whiskey at night. We'll put you right to sleep, my friend, okay?
You don't have to suggest that to him.
All right. Schedule us for our next therapy session next week.
Yes, sir. No problems.
Kyle Brandt joining us here from Good Morning Football.